People are arriving.
Oh,
Now I'm recording.
Now we're recording.
That's all right.
So, Mike asked me, he said, do you have your tone and volume full open? And I said, yeah, because that's the sound that I want to hear. I said, you? He goes, no. He said, I have my volume down sometimes. And he said he's always got an effect going of some kind. It's like never, just unaffected. So some kind of a pedal is always engaged, So it's certainly a different approach, where you're using the electronics, the possibilities of the electronics. And of course, there are many, potential benefits there, But I just come from a different school. I came up listening to Mike Bloomfield, B.B. King, and even Eric Clapton. He was wide open all the time. And
did you decide to go with potted or unpotted?
They are unpotted.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm trending that way with all mine too.
Yeah, it's something I never explored very much of. The potted thing is, I think that's more important if you have a hollow body guitar. But I'm not sure. I don't really know. Maybe not. But anyway,
it's because of the resonances.
yeah,
Definitely.
that can feed back a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that split coil thing, I was just thinking that, you just turn up. But how do you turn up if you don't go back there and turn your amp up, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the only option there. If one plays, with that open volume tone. And that all just comes from B.B. King and Mike Bloomfield for me, It's clean, great guitar tone, loud.
So Robin, you're saying you dial back on the guitar though, and
I don't.
give yourself. Oh no, you go all open 10.
Yeah, I'm all open.
Okay.
It was Mike Landau was the person who, I first had that kind of a discussion with anybody, really. I never talked about it. I thought everybody had their guitar open and they hit a pedal, But Mike, he's doing all kinds of stuff over there. He's tweaking, all the time. Kind of interesting. Because
There's a video on YouTube with you and playing some Santa Monica, maybe college or Santa Monica open air thing in the 79, and Mike Landau's playing there, and he looks like he's 17 years old.
Well,
that's an amazing performance there by both of you guys. It's great to watch.
I have never seen that, didn't know it existed. It's outdoors?
Yeah, it's perhaps PBS or some public television, jazz on Sundays or jazz in the park or something. And it looks like you're playing with Russell Ferrante and some other guys, similar names.
I mean, generally it was Jimmy Haslip and on bass and Ricky Lawson on drums.
Yeah, and it's great.
I added Mike to the band. He was willing, first of all, and I think Mike was. My memory of it is that he was 19.
Was that Yellow Jackets?
Well, it became Yellow Jackets, but it was just kind of my band still there.
We're about to put up a Yellow Jackets story on the dojo, like probably on Tuesday. So keep a lookout for that.
The birthing of that group.
Yeah. Super cool.
How do you guys like the story time thing?
Great.
Perfect. Very good.
So good. So good.
I've covered so many of the people that I've worked with, that are important, that were important to me, certainly. And so I've been thinking about doing albums, right on. Yeah, talking basically about the recording of, the making of those records.
That'd be
With the blue line.
Sure. I mean, all of it.
That's
Yeah.
spectacular. That's the first time I met you with the Robben 4 and the Blue Line.
Yeah.
My first, yeah, the
Was
first
it
one.
the first album?
Yeah. Did
Mhm.
you see the photo that I sent you?
Photo?
Yeah. I sent it to Kelly with the
What was-
email.
Hey, Kelly, did you get a photo from Nat?
With all my CDs, Robben 4 CDs, beautiful.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. She did show that to me. I did see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, the first album is spectacular. I mean, I remember that was the first time that I knew you,
Uh-huh.
and then I wanted to know more about your roots, so your background.
Yeah.
So I started to buy like the early work.
Mm-hmm. There
And
wasn't
then
a lot. There wasn't a lot before that.
Yeah,
There was the Talk to Your Daughter album and
Yeah.
the Inside Story. Those were the only real records. Some other stuff came out, but it wasn't really me.
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't
Then-
intentional on my part. Let's put it that way.
Then Supernatural, what was very important for me. I mean, spectacular, so wonderful. Keep on Running, man, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What I love is that every CD is different. You know, it's like, man, but
Yeah.
you evolve in every CD. in every
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, it's confused a lot of people over the years.
Yeah. Is this Robben 4? I mean, come on. He keeps
Yeah.
learning.
There are people who like it, and then people who
I love it.
they just want another one of the same, you know.
No, I know.
And a lot of artists are like that. Every record, it's kind of a style and a trend and a way they go. You know, they do that thing, you know. But I'm always trying to grow as a musician, you know, like, and I take different, I have a different kind of reason for the record, you know, like one of them might really be about the playing. Another one is really about the rhythm section. Another is about a new way of mixing, you know, and so like each record, I'm just on a different route, and it's so that I can learn, you know,
Yeah.
through that process. So
I think it was the last time I was on here, which was, oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead, Mario.
That's John.
Oh, John, go ahead.
It was a while back, the last time I was on here, you mentioned you're live at Yoshi's, and I wasn't aware of that album, and
Yeah.
got that, and oh my God, what a fantastic album. And
This is the electric record, not right?
yeah. And you had mentioned that it had sat unearthed for the longest time, and then
Yeah.
I called you up and said, hey, I've got the recordings. The
Yeah.
idea that it would have never come out would have just been horrific.
Tragic.
it's
I agree.
such a unique album, and
Yeah.
just,
Thank
I
you.
mean, we're all fans of yours, of course, you know, but boy, there's something special about that record. That's just, I've been listening to it a ton. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
So that'd be
It's-
a great story. I'd love to hear, like you were saying, telling the album stories. That'd be a great one, you know.
Yeah, that works actually on a lot of levels.
Yeah.
You know, because of the concentration on that record of, you know, getting it together and then figuring out, you know, Kelly designed the artwork, and it's like, what are we going to say inside here, you know? I talked about it a lot, so I was thinking maybe we'd already done that, but we haven't. That's
I heard little pieces, but I'd love to hear the whole thing. Yeah.
right on. That's a really good idea. Okay, we'll do that. Yeah, that'll be our first album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Robin, I have a question about you saying that you run everything wide open.
Yeah.
So you're running your guitar tone and your volume at all times. So you're basically using your touch to adjust volumes per tune.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I got to play with that.
and guitars to some degree, you know.
In fact, at one time you used to wire your guitar pots wide open and use a volume pedal.
Yeah,
got away from the volume pedal.
yeah.
Okay.
Why was that?
I got away from the volume pedal because I found myself not using it so much, and it's big and heavy. It took up a lot of space on the pedal board, you know? And so I just decided to stop. And I even dropped the wah-wah pedal, you know, which I used to really use with the Blue Line and also the Tiger Walk album.
Mhm.
Yeah, all of that through the 90s. And again, for me, it just seemed, you know, I get to a point where it's like, I've just heard that so much. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'd like to hear something different. You know, it's that same evolutionary quality. It's like, okay, been there, done that, you know, so now let's try something else. And I've mentioned this before. I have to say it because I just love it so much, that Strymon timeline delay. That's been a really lovely thing to have introduced to my my pedal board and my sound. And then the POG, you know, I've fooled around with the POG, which is just that octave thing, you know, octave up, octave in the middle, and octave down. And that has been something I was using quite a bit for a while there. Now I'm not using it anymore, you know. It's there. I'll pop it in once in a while for one song or so, but I always just want to, I think I always just want to come back to that natural sound of the guitar. And it helps me to concentrate on the playing, I think, you know, like concentrate on being personally creative as opposed to relying on some other resource to, yeah, what's the word? Emulate creativity. If you're playing the same shit that sounds different, great, you know.
I like that.
It's fun for a
Because we're all
while.
guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Trying to break free of that all the time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
They're crutches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also that you know, once again, kind of sticking your neck out thing. You know, it's like, all right, you know, what can I do with the guitar, man? You know, so
Comes down to that.
eventually, and then, you know, you find something and it helps you. It can help your creativity. And yeah, the POG actually, it helped me to play bebop. I wasn't playing bebop, you know, I wasn't playing Charlie Parker tunes, but it helped me to play in that swing kind of a way. Just the way the note, you know, sounded, I found myself able to phrase, you know, more jazz phrasing seemed to make a little more sense. And that kind of a thing is something, you know, I spent kind of a while getting away from, you know, the jazz influence is always there, it never goes away. But I found myself moving away from it for a while and really thinking more about just tone and, you know, how I hit the string and not playing a lot of notes and just a natural sound and all about that, you know. And then, well, you know, found the timeline, Strymon delay, and I'm like, what can we do here? Just to hear these sounds. Yeah, I like it. But it does confuse a lot of people. As I said a little bit earlier, it's like, oh, what's he do again? I'm not sure.
The artist. It's confusing
So-
to people.
Yeah, I just confuse everybody all the time.
Do you ever have issues with noise when you're playing shows with the pedal board? If there's all those digital pedals on it, sometimes if the house power is a little dirty, it kind of amplifies that.
No, I haven't personally had that experience. And it sure is awful when it happens, but generally the only noise problem I ever get is from single coil pickups, you know?
Yeah, with the telly.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of your drive from just the amp, though, not so much pedals, correct?
I play just straight, you know, I mean, I'm kind of loud because I'm using a 100-watt amplifier with 2x12 cabinet. That's
Right.
generally my thing. And it's just naturally a little bit loud, but it's clear and it doesn't really hurt.
Right.
It's, you know, sound mixers, you know, they're always telling you to turn down, you know? And I just say no and go about my business. And but if I want to boost, you know, I used to use the Dumble Overdrive special. I used to just use the boost in the amp, which actually just bypassed the tone controls, which gave you a bump right away. If you bypass the tone controls, many of you probably know this, but the tone controls are a subtraction. You're not adding more treble. You're just bringing it back to where it would be if you weren't using that thing, you know? So a little tip to anybody who's into this, especially with the Fender Super Reverb, what the guys who kind of know do is they turn the bass all the way up, they turn the middle all the way up, and they turn the treble all the way up and then back it off to 8. Or is it 9? It depends on it goes to 11 or not. But you back it off, you know, to 8. And that is what the amp sounds like.
Wow.
If this stuff's, any of that is back, you're taking away. That's what tone controls are.
Will it work with twin reverb? With the twin?
I wonder, and I actually fooled around with that when we did these Clapton shows. I tried setting it up that way, and it was just too loud. I had to use rented gear. Fortunately, it was really good.
Okay.
The Fender 65 reissue series can be and usually is great. So, you know, I use a twin, 65 reissue twin and a 65 reissue super reverb if I can't have my own gear. And just, it's mono. I just have 2 outs, you know, boom, boom. So it's the same signal coming through 2 amps simultaneously.
Wow.
I like using the reverb off the amps. That's really a cool thing. And if I use the Dumble or my little Walter, they don't have reverb in them. And so I like having just a super, and I use it for the reverb, and then I don't have to use the reverb off my pedal board, which it just, none of those pedals work, man. You know, they're okay. I've used the Hall of Fame a lot, but once I realized that I could do this thing, you know, like just have another amp that has reverb as well as the Dumble, and then balance out the volumes. And those 65 reissues sound great. They really do.
Has the subject of incoming AC presented a problem to you in the fact that you can't use some of your stuff, your personal stuff that you brought over from the States? You have to have it wired for various voltages in Europe that you're going to, or you use mostly rentals to accommodate that?
No, Dumble fixed that issue a long time ago with his amp.
You got to switch.
I have a switch for every power, like 5 different power, you know, sources.
Wow.
So that's not been an issue for me. Of course, you have to have this big old transformer and it's heavier, but I needed it. So no problem. Yeah. So any musical questions? I had something that just came up when I was kind of fooling around with the guitar a little bit before we started that I wouldn't mind trying to explore. But before we do that, you know, any musical questions? Yes, David.
Hi, just a general question. So a few weeks ago, you showed us a lick using the whole tone scale.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering how you think about it just in general terms. Like, do you use whole tone as a transition phase, or do you just throwing it in any which way?
Well, I use it as an altered 5 chord. Yeah.
But are you using it as the chord changes intentionally? Do you think of it as a tool for as a chord is moving from the 1 to the 4 or whatever the change might be?
Well,
Is that how you think of it?
so the 1 to the 4 is a 5-1.
Right. Exactly.
Great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you
That's
can
what the
use
altered scale is really cool.
so you can use the whole tone scale, you know, on a G7 going to C, right? So, and that becomes a G7 plus 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, or you can use it, you know, on the D going back to G. And
That
that's
makes
it.
sense, yeah, but do you also use it when you're not transitioning from one chord to the next?
Well, it's bold.
It's bold,
Bold.
yeah.
You can. And Miles Davis told Bob Berg, the tenor player, when I was with him. And Bob was doing this more before I came in. He'd already been there a couple of years. And he said, Bob, play whole tone scale. You know? And so, you know, all the soloing in the group with Miles Davis was one chord. There were never any chords to play on, except the blues. You know, the second song every night, I think for the last 10 years of his life, at least, was the slow blues, you know, in B flat. And that was the only place where he had some chords to play. All the rest of it was one chord jams, man, you know? So yeah. And Miles encouraged, you know, ordered him to start playing whole tone more, you know? And I hear it in Bob's playing. Like when I would hear recordings of what we did, you know, live, only live. There it is, you know, right over that, you know, E flat raised 9, you know, he's playing, you know, E flat whole tone. And the only way to make whole tone interesting really is to make up a bunch of patterns, and it's tailor-made for patterns. And I think, David, that was the lick, wasn't it? It was a whole tone pattern.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Da dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da 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 dee da da. Yeah, yeah. Classic, you know. And I always have this, I'm always of the opinion, just from the lore that I've heard, that Coltrane was the guy who kind of introduced that and a variety of other patterns that became very popular. And he took them from Nikolai Slanimsky's Thesaurus of Scales and Patterns. Say that 3 times real fast. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I never have.
No.
Okay. I'm really bummed because I've ordered it and lost it twice. I don't know how. I moved, you know, and it's kind of expensive. But Nikolai Slanimsky, it might just be Slanimsky's Thesaurus of Scales and Patterns. So.
Is that what he based Giant Steps on?
No, it might have influenced him in some way. It might have, you know, just because it was a pattern that he liked and he decided to do chords, you know.
It seems like it's an augmented melody, you know, at the beginning.
Well, it changes every chord.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
two
about,
beats.
yeah.
Every
just
2
about.
beats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow, you know, but it is there is a definite pattern in it. And that that's an interesting idea, actually, that might have, like, he just decided he would write, you know, using some kind of a pattern, you know, that was very, it's almost geometric, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost like geometry. And this is an interesting discussion to me, in that it just makes me think of how, you know, like nothing needs to be taken literally, you know, like any idea could be just used in a different way, you know. And that's something I do all the time. And really it's because I don't really understand what the original idea was. So I'll do something like it. It sounds kind of like this. I'm sort of kidding, but not really.
But not really.
So
You know,
I have to say that when you had that, I was looking at your riffs and you had the whole tone thing. It was the first time I was ever able to use whole tone. I've been playing around with it for many years, and just like I get frustrated because I just like, where can I find the music in it? You know?
Yeah, it's all patterns. It's all patterns. That's like the whole tone scale is not an appealing, you know, it's not a nice melody. It's not good on the ear. So it's something that, you know, you use it for flash. you know, and you come up with patterns that you can just kind of run through that pattern over that altered 5 chord, and everybody goes, wow, you know, because it is cool. And if you can get those things under your belt, like I only have a few patterns that I, you know, really put the effort in to learn. And because, you know, that whole tone pattern, you can play on the B and the E strings, you know, just start high, da-dee, just drop down a whole step, da-da, play it in reverse, drop down a whole step, da-dee, da-da, yeah. So you can just play it on those 2 strings. So you want to learn how to play it across the fretboard, right? From high to low, like that. And it's all that is practice. All that is spending the time, it's digging the ditch, you know? But the great jazz artists actually did that work or do that work, you know, like they're going to do it because that's their bread and butter as far as they're concerned, just mastering their instrument, you know.
I think that when you use these scales, it's so natural that, you know, when we're trying to learn them, we use them. Okay, there it is. There's the pattern. But, you know, when I listen to you and watch you play, it's your DNA, you know, it's what comes out. It's so magical, you know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. But I use them rarely because I have so little of it. But yes, I know where to use it. And, you know, I always treat it with a musical sensibility.
It doesn't sound intentional is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Yeah.
just flowing along and bam, there it is.
I
You know?
totally agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know?
It's like every time I listen to your records and I want to play some of your phrases, it's like I can't believe that you improvise that and I'm studying it, you know. And it's like the phrase, every single lick or phrase is like a composition per se, you know. So it's so, yeah, man, and you really improvise everything. So I listened to a interview, Richard Bona interview, and he says that also Carl Varian says a lot that improvisation doesn't exist. You have to study a lot, you have to practice a lot.
Yeah.
And then it's like your vocabulary that you then express, then you use what you learn, what you practice. So the question is, I mean, you had to study a lot. I know that you don't practice like you used to, but did you play a lot, like 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 4 hours a day to learn the vocabulary, or it just wasn't natural?
Well, I certainly never practiced for 8 hours any day in my life. I never put in those hours.
Really?
My it's just being musical, you know, for me is the chop, you know. I learned how to play a lot of blues, and I learned chords and scales, and so I know what what scale goes over what chord, and so how can I make music with this, you know? And there are things, you know, of course, that you play, you know, you've played them many times, and you know that you can play that right there, and it happens quickly. We were talking about this last week a little bit, you know. It's just you know, because you've played it a lot, it's like you're saying, it's vocabulary, you know. You don't have to think before you speak.
Yeah, it's repetition. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, you know, you just can't.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like that. It's exactly like that. Only it's, you know, musical notes, you know, and you're using your fingers and the guitar. And so, yeah, it's just constantly doing it. And I mean, playing is.
You had a choice.
Pardon?
You had a choice between sitting in a room for 8 hours a day or going out and playing with people in a live, you know, environment. That would be the way to enhance your playing ability. Well, don't you think playing with people has that, when it comes down to it, rather than sitting in a room, playing with people, making music?
Yes, yeah, but I think it's kind of both. I mean, what you just said. I had this experience early on when I first started playing with the LA Express, and Joni Mitchell, that thing. So that was the first time in my life I was in a class of musicians that were way, I was out of their league as far as I was concerned, and they were just kind enough to let me in, something like that. That's how it felt. And I was out, we played, I was invited to join them, and they were playing standards and shit. They were playing jazz, And I mean, I knew how to play a 2-5-1, but wow, after that first night, and I can't remember if they played 2 nights, 2 weeks in a row at this club in LA. And I don't remember if I went back the second night and then didn't go back the second week. I might have played both those first 2 nights, but I didn't go back the next week. I was invited. And they're like, Robben, you should have come out, man. You got to do it. Just do it. But I swear, John Guerin was the drummer. And I always really liked John. He was a great cat, great drummer. And I just remember at one point looking back at him, and he was laughing at me. I know that he was laughing at me. But he wasn't pissed,
Yeah.
He wasn't like, oh, gotta put up with this guy, He was like, yeah, he's a kid, he's learning, And he was laughing. Oh my God. So I
You
didn't
had the last laugh.
What?
You had the last laugh.
Well, I mean, I finally got to where I could kind of keep up with these guys,
I think that's the brotherhood of it all, which is all very cool,
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You're in friendly, you're in a friendly environment. And as I always like to say, nobody gets hurt, nobody gets hurt. So go ahead, stick your neck out, not afraid to be a fool, as the saying goes, just get out there, just do it. If people are laughing at you, that's okay. Yeah, it's funny.
It makes you more humble when you get around something that kicks your ass.
Well,
If nothing kicks your ass, you're just gonna go, yeah, I'm the best guy in the room. Okay, fine.
well, it was more like, I have a lot of work to do.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
A situation I was in one time. And
Yes.
literally somebody called Green Dolphin Street in E flat, and I never played it in E flat.
Mhm.
I was on the bandstand and I was the rhythm.
Yeah.
There was no keyboard player.
Mhm.
And I went home and I went, okay, you have to know more.
Uh-huh.
And it really worked. I mean, it made a big difference.
Yeah. You decided that you had to sit down and figure that out. How does that work like that? Yeah, I mean, that would be very hard. If an unfamiliar key for me, I would have some trouble with that, And I know that song really well.
Yeah.
I had one yesterday. I had a request for
Not to mention that Hank Mobley was playing saxophone.
Oh my God. No.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
At the end of his career, he was really failing, but he was still there. And he turned around and said, E flat. And I went,
Oh.
I'll never forget it the rest of my life.
Jim, you started to say something there?
Oh, yeah, I had one yesterday. I was playing a 60th wedding anniversary.
Uh-huh.
They actually renewed their vows, and they asked for Smoke Gets in Your Eyes.
Oh.
Not only did I have to sing it, man, there's a lot of augmented chords in that song. I'd never played it before.
I don't
I
know.
just pulled up some sheet music, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
That song really moves. Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. Da 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 da. Yeah.
It's amazing how they used to write songs. They just don't write them like that anymore.
No.
There was
I like
lots of diminished, lots of augmented.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible song.
Yeah. Yeah, that was clearly all of that came out of classical music,
Yeah.
And then it went into vaudeville and into Broadway. Then rock and roll happened,
Yeah.
And everything changed, I think the blues had a lot to do with that. Probably.
Well, all things being equal, I like the blues.
Have you guys seen the movie Elvis?
I haven't seen it yet.
Not yet.
It's really good, man.
I heard J.D. Simo's playing guitar on it.
I don't know his playing. I know his name.
Yeah, he's really good. Pretty incredible.
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
And yeah, Elvis, he grew up in gospel and blues. And it's really neat. Like there's just a couple of scenes in the movie where he and B.B. King become friends. And then B.B. pops up like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and Elvis is like, instead of this thing that he's doing, he's like everybody else. He's just a musician, and he's like, he wants to go hang with B.B. King. He'd rather do that than, whatever's going on out there, It's really cool, man. That really warmed my heart, to see that kind of relationship existed between Elvis and B.B. King. I love that.
I've heard BB talk about it on the Bluesville show.
Is that right?
Talk about what he thought of Elvis. And he goes, first off, he was a real handsome man. The gentleman.
And a monster singer, man. Wow. Yeah. What a voice,
Yeah, that was a great
BB King. I'll never forget.
Did somebody say they met B.B. King?
I hugged B.B. King. This is
you hugged him?
I hugged him after a show, and then got to go backstage and speak with him. I brought up your name. We had talked about Jimmy Witherspoon and B.B. Jimmy wanting to date B.B.'s ex-wife, and then talk about that story.
Spoon wanted to date B.B.'s ex-wife?
Yeah. The presence that man has is absolutely incredible. I never experienced anything like it. The presence.
Yeah.
God bless BB.
Yeah. He's a king. And a sweetheart. My God. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit, if I may, like one of the things that to me is kind of always running in the background with what we do here is like understanding the fretboard. And, many of you, I know you know these things. But I was thinking about intervals and how to move them. Basically, it's like in the harmonized scale, but you could just take one interval instead of doing like the whole chord. And I just happened to pick up the guitar and play such an interval. And I just played an F to the major 7th above it. I had a pick. Hey, babe, could you grab a pick off the table for me? Yeah, right over there. And I thought this might be an interesting way for people, or kind of a fairly clear way for people to learn the fretboard a little bit more. Now, maybe you could just have me on the screen and I could see it better.
Yeah.
All right, little adjustment here.
Well, we have, I don't know how to make this happen.
Okay, just go back. We're all right. The speaker is whoever microphone's on.
Yeah.
Everybody turn their microphones off. Make sure your mics are muted.
Yeah.
Okay, try again now. Yeah, okay, so I'm the speaker.
So Nat, we're seeing you. Nat, can you unmute? Can you mute?
He's muted.
He's muted.
Okay, yeah, let's just go back.
We'll figure this out for next time.
Yeah. All right. So I was just, like thinking, I just played a low F and an E. Right? So it's like if you played an F major 7. But I'm playing it like this. So I'm a big thumb guy, and not everyone is. And you could do it, you can do it any way you get it, if you like. Okay. So, what I'm playing here is an F in the root, and I'm just playing the major 7th above, right? Da, okay. So if you harmonize it, just take that and harmonize it up the scale. So it's just a harmonized major scale, but I'm only using the root and the major seventh as my, it's kind of, you know, this is just going up the scale, right? I'm doing them together. And it's also a nice little finger exercise for me, like the low G and using my little finger here. Now what about here? You could go like that, but I switch it up. So is that clear what that is? I'm just walking up the major scale, you know, with the low F, and then I'm putting the major seventh on top, and that just goes up the major scale too. Same thing. So that could be the third, you know. So, you know, I talk about harmonized major scale, you know, and some people still don't get the concept. But in the spirit of like using the low end of the guitar, you know, and that right there could sound, it could sound like unpleasant. But if played in a musical way, so I thought that this would be a nice way to kind of get to know a different part of the guitar, you know, and also become accustomed to using the low strings as opposed to the high strings for everything. So it's the same thing as like playing, you know, F, there's the major third, right? So it's like going, harmonized major scale, but just using these notes. Major third. Right, it could be the fifth. Not much music there. Whoops. Even that is kind of nice, even though all the rest of this is pretty flat. That's not it. So at least you get a little harmony there. So is this making sense? Great. Yeah. And again,
that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And, you know, encouraged in that way, it's nice to go ahead and use the third and the major seventh together. Right, so you've got all that harmony. And things like this become songs, you know? I'm writing a song now. Right? I mean, there's a nice little musical idea. Da-da-dee. You know? I like those basic things, you know, that can kind of get you started, you know, in some kind of a direction. And of course, I'm familiar with and fond of, you know, a lot of old corny music. It's good. You bring that corny music into something, you know, modern, like you were talking about, you know, like that song, you know, that standard. Da 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 da, right? So there are things in Smoke Gets in Your Eyes that absolutely could inform something now. So I hope that is worth something, that little thing there. And if there's anything anyone would like to talk about, that maybe this is inspired by or that is entirely different, please do.
I got a quick question. Working through, love all the content in the dojo, and a lot of the scales I've worked on, and I found that they started flowing into my playing, as a result of going through these studies. And one thing I observed was, before I was kind of hung up on getting outside and kind of hanging out there in space, but not landing in the right place,
Yeah.
So you're in transition, great, I'm hitting all these outside notes, but now I'm not bringing it home when I land on the next chord.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you think about when you're doing that, how you approach landing it?
Yeah. Resolution.
Yeah. Kind of important.
Well, first of all, for me, I'm so much a blues player that I kind of always resolve into the blues, So it's very, it's an easy way, to come in for a smooth landing. So, I stopped at some point, trying to be a different kind of guitar player, because I am a huge fan of jazz. I listen to way more jazz than I do blues. I rarely listen to blues. I used to listen to it all the time, and I love it, But at a certain point, it was like, and I want to grow, I want to learn new things, So I did, but I, always just came back, to this blues thing. And it's like, okay, I kind of made my peace with that, So I will never be John Scofield, or any number of, great jazz guitar players, I mean, those guys, it's amazing. I listen to John and I don't, but I have. But I mean, the guy can play all day. He just never stops. He just keeps going. It's unbelievable. It's phenomenal. You listen to him with Miles, if you've ever done that. Have you ever listened to any John Scofield, like those live shows?
I've listened to a ton of jazz, like similar journey is what you're talking about, but obviously different journey, but yeah.
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 I mean, it's just incredible. Mike Stern, pretty much the same way. I mean, these guys can play a lot fast for a long time,
I think we all put you in that category with those guys. So,
Absolutely.
We're not buying it, Robben. Sorry.
Oh, no. Those guys did the 8 hours a day. All of them.
Yeah.
They all did the 8 hours.
But Medini always talk about it. Always.
Absolutely.
That you have to play like 10 hours a day, and he still does so.
Yeah, and everybody else would say the same thing for the most part,
Yeah. Berkeley School of Music.
Yeah, education.
Berkeley.
I mean, if you're at the school, you got to do the work,
Yeah.
And all these people are around you kicking your ass, So I wouldn't have lasted more than a week there, because I don't.
Don Mock used to kick my ass.
What?
I said Don Mock used to kick my ass.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Don, he also huge vocabulary. So that's vocabulary. So I decided to go the way of phrasing, and you're not really.
What's the difference?
The difference is, well, vocabulary and playing a lot really fast for a long time, there's not a lot of phrasing in there. There's no time. There's no time to phrase. There's no time to tell a story. There's no time to express any emotion. I mean, one emotion maybe, but there's no journey in it. I mean, Pat Metheny is very musical, and he's a guy who he's very melodic, and he knows how to play all that shit too. But in his own situations, he chooses to play in a melodic way. He does.
Yeah.
Scofield does in his own way. He kind of does it to me through humor, and there's a way that he does that. It's not blues playing. It's not like the kind of phrasing that you find in blues. To me, there's a lot broader, way broader field there. I've thought about this,
Yeah, the vibrato, the bending, yeah.
And
vibrato, bending, all that stuff.
And think about how many guitar players, great blues guitar players, all sound different. They all sound different. They have they phrase differently. They have a different tone. There's certain things that they kind of move towards. There are way more voices, individual voices in blues guitar than there are in jazz. To me, there's like 5 voices in jazz, maybe. I mean, the one thing that fusion and rock and all that, fusion and rock, you know, brought to jazz was new sounds, you know. But phrasing, not so much, you know. To me, it's all very linear. It's just, it's kind of linear. It doesn't do this. It doesn't go up and down, you know, like, it's not dramatic. It's just like one thing, you know.
What do you think?
I kind of make the analogy of it. It's like somebody speaking. If you're listening to a lecture or what have you, or even somebody just talking to you and having a very intelligent conversation, but it's like run-on sentences versus somebody who says very informative little tidbits and pauses and lets those things settle in.
Yeah.
You know, they're more impactful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of like memorizing the dictionary doesn't make you a poet. It just means you know a lot of words, which I learned the hard way when I was in undergraduate. I tried to take music classes and it was brutal, and it didn't make me a better musician. I knew a lot more than I did before, but it didn't give me anything to say. And so I was frustrated by that.
That's a good way to describe, you know, the difference between phrasing and vocabulary. It can give you more to say for sure. Like the more you know, absolutely the better. But it becomes a trap, you know.
Monotonous. It can become monotonous.
Yeah, and it's like
Good as they are.
Machine
Good
gun.
as they are, it's not melodic.
You think that's all from the bebop era when they just played 8th notes really fast and
16th notes?
Yeah, and they just didn't, like, you know, a few triplets here and there, but really it was just pretty much chord tones and patterns.
Charlie Parker was very melodic, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beauty in his playing. But it reminds me, Paul Desmond's a big influence on me. Probably my first real musical influence, alto saxophone player. I wasn't playing the alto yet, but in any case, you know, he told this story. You know, he said he got the notion. I'm not disparaging practice, by the way, here at all, but he got the notion. You know, he said I could probably play a lot more and faster if I practiced, and he started practicing. And then he said he had to stop because he started playing too fast. So it depends. It depends on what you like, what you want to hear, you know.
Yeah, I got this big round Golden Gate pick. It's a heavy gauge and it slows me down. And guys are like, why are you playing with that? You know, it seems like it slows you down. I got this speed pick thing. I'm like, no, you know. I want to be slowed down.
I want to be slowed down. This is exactly it. It's the same story.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear a lesson on landing stuff, though. If you're thinking about content, how do you land that transition if you're out using an altered scale? Now you're coming back into your next resolution. How do you land the plane? Love to get your thoughts on that.
I'm not sure that I know how to answer that question because it seems sort of conceptual. I mean, on my part, my understanding of, you know, like, you know, you're playing something altered, but the way to resolve it is to do it in a musical way, right? And I don't
maybe go to the 3, you know, of that 4 chord, just to say, hey, I'm here now, you know.
Well. People talk about target notes, things like that, landing on this note or that note. And for me, it's just, you know, kind of, you know, you're composing a melody, you know. Yeah. So if you were singing a melody, you wouldn't be thinking about 3rd, 5th, 7th.
Right. For the practice time, you know.
Sing it, you know, you just kind of sing notes. that
Probably the
sound
best way to
good
do it, right?
in a line. So once again, this is back to the whole point about that, like playing too fast, all of that. I chose to go the way of phrasing and tone, sound.
So get away from the scale and just hear it. And yeah.
Well, certainly you want to know, what the note's going to sound like before you land on it, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to these notes are in the scale and I can use them and I can land on them. That's a learning pattern, and that absolutely is a good thing to do. If you're playing the right scale,
That's the goal.
If you're playing the right scale over whatever the chord is, you can't make a mistake. Is it musical? And
I like that.
how
Start
do you
there and then make sure it's musical.
Yeah.
So use more your brain than your fingers. Well,
use more of your brain or your musical sense,
Yeah.
More your feeling, yeah.
And for me, the blues is what has tied it all together for me.
And speaking of phrasing, the Mystic Mile, man, the solo and live song, one of my favorite. I guess because it was the first song, the first album that I bought. Remember the brother, the introduction. I was like, wow, what is this? Because it was a new sound for me.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to the first song of the album, so the brother, and the last one, a live song. Man, the phrasing. I love the clean sound. And also in the second, Robben 4 and the Blue Line, the Mystic Mile, the song, the Mystic Mile. Man, what a sound! The phrasing, the vibrato, the bending. It's all. It's a composition.
Well, I think like a composer,
Yeah, beautiful.
That's kind of what. Yeah, I think that's what that's kind of the subject. Is like, you're singing it. You're
Spectacular, yeah.
And that you kind of have to do slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's more difficult. Breathing while you playing, because it's the perfect intonation in the bending, is the vibrato is a tempo, So it's like, it is not easy.
No,
being in tune with the bending, man, it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, that's how the way I chose to go again, as opposed to practicing all that stuff and getting the vocabulary. Trust me, I admire them. It's like Miles Davis wished he could play like a lot of people. He couldn't. He never did that thing. He never did that thing. He went for tone, mood, what are we playing? Not how do we play it necessarily, but what are we playing? And how does this feel? And what's the drummer doing? What's the bass player doing? It's all about the whole thing, Let's make this music, Of course, he was directing, but he certainly had his way of creating an environment on a bandstand, And again, that right there, it's like that's just like walking through a forest, it's not, you don't run through the forest, you walk through the forest, It's an environment. Yeah. Okay, I think Kelly has something she wants to talk about here.
Well, first I want to say hi to Dan. Nice photos in the back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all done by you. You're quite the artist.
I'm about to launch a website with all my photos.
Is that right?
Yeah, so anybody who wants to buy them can, which is cool.
I thought they were sold out. Those photos, the telephoto?
No.
They're series, right?
It's a series, but the whole thing is being revamped because we moved to Europe and there's all kinds. Anyway, I'm starting a whole website with all of my photography, not just Robben's guitars. So
awesome.
She did indeed. It was like, there were
limited series, but
and they're gone.
Still available.
They are?
Other ones, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good goose.
I think Dan got the original, the main one. This one, the middle one, you got the original.
And these, the top ones were one of 6. I think
Yeah.
you did 6.
Yeah.
What's the website?
It's coming. It's coming. It's not there
Ah,
yet.
okay, okay.
We'll let you know.
Awesome, thank you.
Very sweet. Thank you.
So now I'm just waiting on my Robben Ford signature guitar from the Music Zoo in Long Island.
All right.
I I'm making 200. Apparently they didn't make them all yet.
He
Right,
told
but,
me, Paul told me that they were all made.
Well, I'm waiting 1 month.
Uh-huh.
I know those guys very well over there at their Music Zoo, so they wouldn't. I already paid for half of it, so I'm just waiting anxiously.
All
And
right.
then that's gonna go on the wall right in this spot over here.
Right on, man.
That'll take the place of this one.
Oh, looky there.
The old
Yeah.
days.
Oh.
The Fender
Wow.
model.
Look
Mhm.
at that.
Yeah. Right on.
Very cool. Very cool. So anyway, Robin and I were, I just came up kind of with an idea today that I thought was kind of cool. And we'd been talking about something like this for the dojo. And it would be like just to have, because I get I have the feeling, and I think Robin, it's like you guys are like his students, you know, and you are on the dojo and you're studying his lessons and you're learning from him. And I was thinking that it would be really great if there could be an opportunity for you as individuals to present to him or have a little lesson with him about what you've learned and what you're learning, and so he can kind of have a relationship with you. So we were thinking that to initiate basically that if you have been a dojo member for 6 months, then you can have access to, or you can have a private Zoom like lesson with Robin. It would still cost something because he can't, you know, it's a lot of people, but at a reduced rate. But if you've been a dojo member for 6 months, then you can have like a 20-minute to half an hour lesson with Robin, just so he can see what you're learning and where you are and give you some feedback. And also just because we need to feel like people are committed to the dojo. So that's why we're thinking of the 6-month thing. Like if you've really been with us for a while and with Robin and learning and studying and practicing, then, you know, then he could give you some, you know, could have a private Zoom lesson with him and get some feedback. So we're hoping that people would be into this. Yeah.
I would love that. I would really love that.
Definitely, for sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
Very cool.
I'll see you in 4 months then.
Can I pay up to my 6 months
I'll
now?
see you in 6.
I'll see you in 6 months.
Well, that's the idea.
That's the idea.
No, that's awesome. That's
Elaine,
awesome.
Elaine, you're ready. You're ready, Elaine.
Very good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've thought about this for quite some time, how he would give individual one-on-one attention in a format like this. And it's just not possible. You know, and I did a lot of instructor work. I work for General Electric. I've been working in ultrasound my whole life. And, you know, when you have to teach a course, that really helps you learn the material. When you have to demonstrate as a student to the instructor and prove that you've taken in what they've taught you, that brings learning to a whole nother scale.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's appropriate for the right people who can put that time in and demonstrate it to you. It'll make them a better player having to get in front of you,
right,
you know, and demonstrate. You know, it works both ways. So I think that's an excellent idea at an additional cost. The way to go.
Nice, man.
Thank you, man.
Both excited and terrified.
Yes, but it'll make
It's
you
okay. Don't be.
force you to learn.
Just like this, man. You know.
It's just like this, and I think exactly you said it right on there, Dan. Like that's exactly it. It's like this is, you guys are the ones who are committed and wanting to learn, and so the only way to really learn sometimes is to have a little feedback from the teacher. So, okay, I'm gonna get on it and we'll make it work. And so we'll keep you posted.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today, guys and gals.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great week.
From Reykjavik,
Safe
I
trip to
guess,
Iceland.
Southern Hemisphere next week for the Southern
Reykjavik?
Hemisphere, and whoever can make
Northern.
it from Reykjavik, but
Iceland.
Southern Hemisphere. people. Yeah,
For the Southern Hemisphere people.
yeah. But
Well, that's
whoever-
heavy early here on the
I'm
East
in
Coast.
Reykjavik next Sunday, so.
Everyone, I found that thesaurus on Amazon.
A thesaurus. Okay.
Yes, I found it on Amazon. I put it in the chat.
Okay.
Just ordered.
Thank you. Great. What is that?
Okay.
Thesaurus.
So in the chat, if I wanted to find that.
It's right here. Here's the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I put the link of you from 79 from that Santa Monica outdoor top there too.
Thank you. I've got to see that.
Hopefully we can keep the chat after we go off of here.
Is there a way to
put it somewhere.
transfer
We'll
stuff?
just hit it.
We're not super.
We'll just hit it.
Okay.
Kelly, you can copy the link, copy and paste,
Yeah,
Copy and paste the link here.
where?
or you can click it, and it
Okay,
will open in a
Okay.
new window.
okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.